Alrighty, good morning, Mr. Contreras.
Good morning.
All right, so to start off, if you could just state your full name for me and what activity you are an instructor of.
Sure. So my name is John Contreras. I am the director of Mariachi Aslan de Pueblo High School, and I'm the head of the mariachi program here at Pueblo High School.
Awesome. Okay. And to continue on to our questions. So, in what ways do you think these programs shape a student's sense of identity or connection to their culture?
Yeah. So it definitely does in the way that you have students that come in that are Spanish speaking already, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so they may kind of think like, well, this music is a little bit on the older side. It's stuff my nana listens to and that kind of thing. And maybe my mom and dad, or, maybe I'm more into like some new stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's neat because they kind of discover it and then they kind of understand sometimes the ties. Um, I've had many a student, like I'll teach a song and they'll be like, hey, wait a minute, that's a new song by so and so. And I'm like, it's not really a new song. It's like it's been recorded for years, many years, back it was popular in the 50s, by so and so. And then they'll
Mm-hmm.
kind of be like, oh my gosh. Like, so I think that's a neat connection. We also get non-Spanish speaking students, right?
Mm-hmm.
They may come from a Mexican American background or have very little connection. Maybe they're like second generation, third generation, even removed from true Mexican citizens in their family. Like a grandma or a great grandma or a great grandfather kind of thing
Yeah.
that was born in Mexico. And so with them too, it's kind of one of those connections to where they kind of start understanding and learning the language. So maybe they don't speak the language at home, but now they're singing it. And so the coolest thing is when I hear people say like, hey, so what does this mean? They tell me like, I'm singing this song, but I'll like my intermediate group is learning Los Barandales del Puente. And they're like, what's a barandal? And I'm like, oh, it's the railing. It's the railing of on a puente is a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, I get this. And so they kind of start, oh, okay, so that's what's going on in the song and that's what it's about. And so that as well is another connection. And I think one of the biggest things and the reason why I think I connect so much to it is I was kind of in that same boat as like a lot of these kids. So my dad was born in Mexico. My mom was born here, but her father was born in Mexico. Um, so I was kind of like a second, almost second generation, a little more than second generation. And so my parents spoke Spanish, but didn't really speak it to me.
Okay.
It was one of those things where they would speak to me in English, but then they would speak to each other in Spanish or with
Yeah.
other people. And I kind of would pick it up because I mean, as a kid, you're a sponge. So I would pick up kind of language things here and there. And I was very inquisitive. So I would ask my dad, hey, what's this mean? But the really neat thing about it was that my dad was a musician. He used to play guitar and he played more like the trio style, like the bolero trios,
Yes.
like Los Panchos and Los Tres Haces. And so he would play the guitar. And as like a little kid, I remember being about 3 years old and like I would go like try to play the guitar with him. And so of course he bought me a little guitar and kind of started showing me and knew that I took an interest in the guitar and also singing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he would teach me songs. And as the same thing as he would teach me the songs, I would be like, but dad, what am I saying here? Like, and he'd be like, oh, this song means this. And I'd be like, so here I am learning a language through song, right? Which is really neat because we pretty much all do that, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times when I talk to people, they'll be like, well, we don't really learn through song. And I'm like, okay, how did you learn the ABCs? Right? You learn the
Exactly, yeah.
ABCs by singing them.
Yeah.
You didn't just, nobody just said A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. Like, right? A,
Mm-hmm.
B, C, D, E, F, G. Right? You sang
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
song and that's how you learn the alphabet.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's one of the big things is that just in terms of like research and stuff like that with kids and cognitive, uh, learning abilities, a lot of that stuff, and that's why a lot of people put um, words or they put things into song, and then kids are easier. It's an easier way to remember something as opposed to just me speaking to you and
Right.
and telling you. And I mean that comes way back. That goes way back to like obviously, you know, uh, Romans and the Greeks when they would, sing songs, and those songs were stories. And that now that's kind of funny because now that's the corridos, right? That's what everybody hears, like the corridos, like such and such day, so and so this happened, and so it's like the news, right? And people remember these songs and stories and stuff through song. But coming back around, because I'm
Mhm.
sorry I'm getting kind of long-winded on this
No,
one.
no, I appreciate all the what you're saying because it's so true. Honestly, like when I was starting mariachi, I unfortunately didn't do it in elementary. I kind of had like a hard time starting. But when I was in middle school and I was with Rudy Valenzuela, yes, we started learning about like the songs and what they mean and going over lyrics. So like I totally understand that that's exactly how a lot of kids learn. That's how I learned. So I appreciate like, from an instructor's point of view, just like acknowledging that because it does help so much. Yeah.
Oh no, definitely. So one of the tie-ins I would say, and I'm pointing back to myself because, like I said, my dad would teach me all these songs, and I just remember just learning them. But then you're a kid, and you'd be like, "Well, Dad, can I go out and play or whatever?" And he'd be like, "All right, let's work on this song for a little while. We're gonna learn it, okay? And then if you get through, the song, whatever, like this, then you can go out and play." So it was kind of like a reward, and I'm like, "Okay, cool." And I liked it, but as a kid, your attention span is like, "Oh, my buddies are outside riding bikes. I want to go." He'd be like, "All right, let's go over the song, and then you can go." And then I'd be like, "Okay," so that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But one of the neatest things, and I remember I was probably about 5 or 6. Um, I remember my dad had taught me some songs, right?
Mhm.
And then he's like, we're gonna go to your nana's. It's your nana's birthday, and so my nana as well was Mexican descent, and so we go, and my nana spoke nothing but Spanish,
Mhm.
and I was very pocho as a little kid, right? I would tell my nana, like my nana would give me like a quarter or something, right? And I would tell her, "Muchas gracias por los monies," like because I had, I would tell her all these funny little like things, and like I knew burrito, hey, because my nana made the best bean burritos, right? So I knew, nana, I want a burrito, So, but yeah, so I couldn't really converse with her, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? I could, and she understood what I was saying,
Mhm.
and I kind of understood what she was saying, but it wasn't, 100%. So we go for her birthday, and I sing her Las Mañanitas, and my nana busts out crying, and I'm like, as a 6-year-old kid, you're kind of like, wait, like my nana's crying, and I'm like thinking to myself, is that like bad that I'm making her
Oh,
cry, right?
uh-huh.
But then like, I'm like, wait a minute, but she's like, it's crying, but it's kind of like a laughing crying, I
Yeah.
see it's like joyful. So all of a sudden, I think like right at that moment, as I made that connection with her, because I sang her a song, you know what I mean, in Spanish that I couldn't speak it very well, but I sang her a song, Las Mañanitas, for her birthday, that made her weep, that gave her joy, you know what I mean? And so all of a sudden that connection was like boom, solidified, through, that for that earlier generation. And then as I grew up, obviously that was always the thing, like, hey, oh, Nana's favorite song is this one. Let's go play it, right? So I would go
Oh.
and we'd go play for her and that kind of thing. So, and yeah, so I think that's kind of a cool thing, and I see that happen with our students. Some of the students that are non-Spanish speaking, and they'll be like, "Hey, Dad," or "Hey, Mister." They're like, "Can we, we're gonna play or whatever. Can we play for my nana or whatever?" Yeah, yeah. And so we'll go play, and then same thing. The nana's weeping, and you see that kid be like, "Wow!" Like, "Oh my God!" Like this is like one of the best things that I can give my nana, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
or tata or whoever it is, yeah.
That is so special. Yes, it's actually now that you say that, I recently was having a conversation with my nana because also growing up, my parents were also, their first languages were Spanish. My dad is from Mexico, and my mom is from California.
Mm-hmm.
My grandparents are all from Mexico. So, they kind of grew up speaking Spanish, but because my dad had been here for quite a while, it was easier for him to speak in English to me and my sibling. So that was what we mostly spoke around the house. I did grow up speaking Spanish because I had to try and communicate with the rest of my
Of
family
course,
members.
yeah.
Yeah. So like um it was hard sometimes, but as I'm getting older and I stuck uh learning Spanish and like just trying to have conversations with them, and I'm actually studying in Spanish now, so it's way easier for me to converse with her.
Oh
And
yeah.
when we were talking the other day, she actually she had told me, because I think it was a Juan Gabriel song that had come on her Alexa, and we were sitting there, and she was like, this song, like every time it comes on, it reminds me of you because you used to sing it when you were mariachi. And I was like,
Right,
oh.
right.
So I was like, I'm so glad that I, have that connection with her,
Heck
because
yeah.
now when she hears it, even, when grandparents get older, sometimes they forget, but there are these like special things between you that like
Oh,
connects you with them. And
huge.
if that's what helps her remember me, if, things start slowing down for her, then like that will be something so special to me, like
Mm-hmm.
for the rest of my life. I'll always think about her when she says that to me. So that's like so special. I'm actually like kind of tearing up now
Then
hearing you
emotional,
saying
of
it. Yeah,
course, of course.
because like I like when she said it, I like resonated, and I was sitting there and I was like, oh, gracias, Nana, and all that stuff. And
Hmm.
now that I'm sitting here talking with you and like being able to relate with someone about having a memory like that, that is so. That's like
That's,
so hard, like felt, and
of course, that's
yeah.
like I said, that solidifies that bond,
Hmm.
that, that connection. It's exactly what we're discussing, how,
Yeah.
and even sometimes it may not be a family member. Like
Hmm.
sometimes there's a connection, like for example, I just took Mariachi Aslan. We went to Napa Valley last weekend
Yeah.
to go play at a Napa Valley Mariachi Festival. And one of our girls sang a Juan Gabriel song. And the lady who was kind of in charge of the festival and the college there, afterwards she came and she's like, oh my God, that young lady had me in tears.
Oh.
She's all, where is she? And I'm like, oh, it's her right there. And she's like, oh my God, she's on Mija, that song. And, so like she had no idea who this person was. I mean, who knows if they will ever cross paths again.
Yeah.
But that connection was made where that woman now will probably associate that, like, oh my gosh, that concert at the time that young lady sang that song and it brought me to tears. So yeah, it really, we yield a very powerful magic, I want to say, like
Yeah.
when you think about music and what you can do with it. So it's pretty neat. It's very neat to see that, that we have that ability to literally just jump inside somebody and be like, oh, here, touched your heart. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And sometimes, like I said, you don't know it.
Hmm.
Like one of those things. I've been playing mariachi since I was like 6 years old, playing in like youth groups and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Back when I was like, back when I was in high school and like younger, there were no school groups, so it was all community type groups.
Right.
And so I played in community groups and things like that, and continue to still play today. But like I've played so much that I will have, and my wife laughs because it happens. It happened the other day. We were somewhere and somebody came up to me and they're like, hey, they're like, you probably don't remember me, but like you played for me and my husband's wedding like
Oh.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's cool, and it's like they remember. So you have this tie with them, whether you don't know it or not, but it's
Yeah.
like they remember you or they have pictures. I've also had people come and be like, hey, this is you, huh? And I'm like, or I've had
Uh-huh.
students of mine come and be like, Mister, this was you, huh? And I'm like, oh yeah, that was me, like in the '90s. I'm like, holy cow, yeah. And
Wow.
they're like, yeah, you played. This was my grandmother's like such and such birthday, and my mom found these pictures that there's mariachis, and she's like, wait a minute, that's my mariachi teacher at Pueblo.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I mean,
Amazing.
yeah. So you don't like again, like I think that's another big thing that once again we're a little off topic, but I think at the same time it's really important to stress is how important mariachi music is to the culture, right? To the
Yeah.
Mexican American culture, because if you think about it, right? So somebody says, hey, you know what? We're having a baby. We're gonna do a gender reveal, or we're gonna have like a baby shower, right?
Hmm.
Let's hire a mariachi, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Like, hey, the baby's first birthday, we need to have a mariachi, right? You go and you play for the baby's first birthday, right? And then, hey, the baby has a quinceañera, right? We need to hire a mariachi. Here comes a mariachi, right? That young lady all of a sudden now gets married. Guess what? Gotta hire a mariachi, right?
Yeah.
Now there's, whatever, 10th anniversary, whatever. We gotta hire a mariachi. Guess what? Now they're having a baby. Gotta hire a mariachi, right?
Yeah.
That person celebrates their 50th birthday. gotta hire a mariachi, right?
Yeah.
There's a mariachi for there. That person celebrates 75 years, they hire a mariachi, or there's an anniversary, they're celebrating their, 40th anniversary. Gotta hire a mariachi, right?
Yeah.
And it's all the way to when they lower the casket. Gotta hire a mariachi. So the mariachi is kind of there for people from birth to death,
Yeah, that is
and
so
it and all important things in between.
true.
So I think that's the neat thing that still is a huge connector, and just shows the importance of the music, and how it brings joy, sometimes brings sadness,
Yeah,
but brings memories. I think is one of the big things.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yes. I totally agree with you. And it's so, like, I feel like maybe in your perspective, it could just be so, like, gratifying to be able to have that connection, especially for the students. Like you were saying, that some of them are not as connected, but like through these programs, they're getting reconnected, and then
Yes.
this like program will impact them future. Even if they don't continue playing, you know what? They're gonna still hire that mariachi because it's something that like brings us all together, something
Yeah.
that will always connect us within our culture and stuff like that.
Going on to the second question, have you seen students carry lessons from the program into other parts of their lives, academically, professionally, or personally?
Definitely. I always get people that come up and tell me, they're like, "Wow, the mariachis are so good. They're so professional. They're so this, that," and they always say, like, most of them go on to play like later, right,
Hmm.
professionally. And I tell them, not really. A small percentage do, but I kind of tell them, first and foremost, I'm not here. I'm not here to make professional mariachis, right? I'm here to make. I'm not going to say make, but I'm here to support and influence, responsible young adults.
Hmm.
That's kind of my thing. Whether they pick up an instrument, after they walk off the graduation stage here at Pueblo, then maybe they don't.
Yeah.
But but maybe they, one of the things, or some of the things that they take with them is obviously the discipline that's needed to work on something, right? Whether it's your
Yes.
instrument, or whether you're like, hey, we have a concert and we've got to like know this song by this, amount of time,
Yeah.
right? Dedication, responsibility. They have to understand, hey, we got to be here at such and such time. We got to be ready to go. You have a suit that you have to maintain. You have an instrument that you have to maintain. There's a certain way of carrying yourself. Professionality, like, again, like, being able to speak. That's the one thing too, is that a lot of my students, we go out and play, and they go up, they introduce the songs, they introduce themselves. Sometimes, people will ask, hey, tell us about yourselves. And they'll say, oh yeah, I'm a junior, and I've been playing for 12 years, this and this and that.
Mhm.
So yeah, so a lot of that public speaking comes into my, yeah. So just even the fact that to get into Mariachi Aslan, you have to audition,
Mhm.
right? And there's kids that are terrified,
Oh,
terrified,
yeah.
right? Crazily terrified to do it. But the neat thing about that is that that's just a step. That's one small step. Like, I've told students in the past, I'm like, so you're terrified to audition, but guess what? In about 3 or 4 years, you're probably going to have to apply for a job somewhere. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And you might not think of it as not as an audition, but it is when they say, "Hey, all right, we need to interview you."
Hmm.
That's an audition. You're auditioning for a job,
Yeah.
right? So, like, that's one small step. You trying to audition to get into this mariachi, that's setting you up for things later in life that are going to come at you. And that's one thing I obviously tell my kids too, is my students. I tell them, that right now in high school, everything is, you know, it's kind of, how can I explain it? It's somewhat easy. I'm not going to say it's easy because
Mhm.
it's hard,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's somewhat easy compared to what real life is,
True.
right? Real life, college. I tell them college doesn't have bells. There's no bells that tell you, oh, you have a minute to get to class. No, you
Yeah.
you like know, and you have to have a watch, and you have to know, like, I need to get to class by this time, and I need to. And the teachers aren't there, like, well, we're gonna call your parents because you're falling behind. Like, that does not happen,
Oh, yeah.
right? Yeah, it's like there's nobody like after high school. High school is is cuddly and warm, and it's like we're here to like get you, But I go, real life comes really fast. It slaps you in the face. So you kind of have to be prepared for that, and it's the same thing with mariachi. I tell them, you know what, when we go perform places, it's like, hey, you got to be here by a certain time, because yeah, the client expects us to start at 6. You have to be here at least 20 minutes before. We can get tuned up, we get ready, we go on and play. It looks horrible if we can't start or if you walk in late, or that kind of thing. And I'm like, those kind of things help you out down the road, because yeah, life's going to come at you, and no one's going to be there to no counselor is going to be there to call your parents and say, oh, their grades are slipping, or maybe they need tutoring. It's like none of that's going to be there,
No.
right? Or just
Yeah.
life in general. I tell them there's going to be, maybe you get married and have kids and don't go to school, but you go to work. Well, now guess what? Like, because I'll have kids, they'll tell me like, oh, mister, gosh, I have all this homework, I have all this work, and then then we have rehearsal after school, and we have to play, and this and that, and they're like, I don't know how to do it, and I'm like, guess what? Like, I'll just tell them, I go, look at your mom, for example.
Yeah.
Your mom has a job. Your mom has to have food ready for you, have your clothes ready for you, has to like take you to school in the morning, pick you up. You have brothers and sisters. Guess what? Your mom has to do that for them too. And all the while, like, trying to maintain her job, no matter what it is. So it's like, I'm not going to feel sorry for you, because you know what? You're a young adult. You just don't know how to do it yet, but you have to apply yourself.
Yeah.
But that whole like feel sorry for me attitude is not going to work, because same thing, like, one time too, I would tell them, I'm like, I have a family, I have 2 kids, I was going to school while I was still working here, I'm running a mariachi, a student mariachi, and then I'm also playing in a professional mariachi. I'm like, I'm having to juggle like all these things in my life, and meanwhile keeping bills paid, my vehicle maintained. Like, there's like all these, there's no rest, there's no,
Yeah.
like, you know so I'm like, I'm sorry if you just have 2 little things in your life that are stressing you out. Like we have a million things in our life that's stressing us out, right? So
Yeah.
so yeah, it's those funny things where it's like, it's giving them that sense of responsibility, that they understand, like, hey, you know what, like, um this is like the next step into being an adult. Yeah.
Right. And I hope that they will take these, like, maybe, like, not totally related things, but like there are concepts, like you were saying, like being timely, being professional. Hopefully, I would love if everyone took that away, even if they didn't continue playing, professionally outside.
Hmm.
But definitely, I learned a lot of lessons like that from my experiences in mariachi in middle school and some of my high school. With all that, definitely my instructors were like, okay, you got to be like this, and this, and
Hmm.
you have to be prompt, or you have to just be like ready, be here, please, so that we can
Yeah.
go over all this stuff. And yeah, that is really like the real world. You don't go to your job just like willy nilly, whenever. Like,
Yeah.
they tell you you're gonna start at this time, get there a little bit earlier so you can prepare yourself, go
Yeah.
and do all that
and
stuff.
and the details,
Yeah.
those little details matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's like what I tell my students. It's like, you know what, oh, mister, I forgot my earrings. That's a detail. That's a huge detail.
Yeah.
Like, all the girls wear the earrings, like, all, or, oh man, I can't find my boots, or I can't find my belt or something. I'm like, no, those are details, man.
Yeah.
Like, those are the little things that you need to, like, and those are going to be those minor details in life,
Yeah.
that if you miss those, like, that could be pretty major, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you miss, oh, it's just a house payment, and all of a sudden you're behind on your house, and now you're losing your house. You're like, there's like little minor details in life that you
Yeah.
need to like prioritize, and like,
Exactly.
yeah, well,
Yeah. Definitely. So I hope everyone will definitely take those kind of things away from these programs. I love
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Awesome. Okay. Let's move on to the
sure.
third question. So, how do you think this program will influence? Oh, so sorry, so sorry. Wrong question. What role do you think mariachi plays in preserving culture for younger generations?
Read me that one more time.
Sure. What role do you think mariachi plays in preserving culture for younger generations?
The role that I think it plays kind of ties back to kind of a little what I said in that first question.
Yeah.
The fact that these students came in not really maybe knowing the language, not having a clear cut connection to their culture,
Mm-hmm.
and now through song and obviously through what they're doing in mariachi now, there's that all of a sudden that bridge, right?
Mm-hmm.
That gap has just, or the bridge has been, made over the gap, and so that comes right,
Mm-hmm.
and then the really neat thing about that is that I have students now that are that are they are kids of my ex students.
Okay.
So, like the very first couple of years that I was here, I had a couple of students. Now their sons and daughters are now in the mariachi with me, right? So I'm
Yes.
starting to see that, like, now it's not just it's not just that one and done kind of thing. Now I'm seeing the generational flow of the connection of the culture through this family.
Yeah.
And the really neat thing about it is when I talk to them, they're like, we didn't force it on them. Like, as a matter of fact, one of them like was telling me that one of the young ladies that's in our group, they're like, she didn't really even want to do mariachi. Like, she was like, oh, Dad, I don't want to do that. And they were like, fine, we're fine. That's fine. You can do whatever else. But little by little, she would like, oh, hey, you know what? My friend's doing it. Or, hey, my friend, and then guess what? Mom has a violin. And, so maybe I should just start trying it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so she got that interest, and then all of a sudden, now she's like a little powerhouse. Now she's a freshman, and she came in, and she's like, man. So now it's becoming multi generational, right? And I'm not the only one. I mean, I've seen that. I know colleagues of mine that have been teaching for many years. Like a good
Mhm.
friend of mine, John Nieto, he teaches in San Antonio, and he's been, he's telling me he's like he's now even getting grandkids now. Like
Oh
that's how
wow.
like the scope of being like you know some of his first students, their their kids have come through, and now there's grandkids coming through. He's been teaching for years, but yeah, so it's really interesting to see that it's almost like once it kind of sets that little fire in them, they kind of pass that fire down. And it's cool too, because I've had other students that weren't in my advanced class, they weren't in Mariachi Aslan,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm seeing like their kids come. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know if you remember me, mister. I was in like your beginning class, and like I never really took it seriously, but now here's my son and he loves it. You know what I mean? And you're
Oh.
just like, wow, like
Yeah.
so some way or another, I hopefully, I think that they respected enough, even though they themselves maybe didn't take it as serious, and maybe they did something else in their life, which is great again.
Mm.
But now I'm seeing their kids, like they're bringing their kids to me, which is cool. Like,
That is amazing. I didn't even think of that. Because I mean the instructors I grew up with definitely like a big part of their families are in there, and I'm so sure that like the students they taught as kids and like having like future generations go to them and stuff like that, and then as you're telling me as well, like that is so
isn't
amazing.
that crazy?
Just like it's like you're seeing another like spitting image of a kid you saw like years ago.
Oh
That
my
is
gosh,
so cool.
100%. Yep, a
That is
hundred
so
percent.
cool. Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Awesome.
Going on to the next question. How has teaching mariachi or folklorico impacted your life or sense of purpose?
I would say 24 years ago, I did not. If you told me I would be a teacher, that was just not going to happen. I would said, no way. Now this is my 23rd year of teaching. Once again, I'll just reiterate that I was in Chicago playing professionally, and that was really nice, but the Chicago winters were horrendous. When they asked me to come back to Tucson, I said, you know what, this seems pretty cool. Working as a teacher, you have benefits, you have health care, insurance, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You have retirement. So, yeah, so that kind of made sense. And I said, you know what, I think I'm going to go back to Tucson. So that was a huge impact, right? That brought me back home to Tucson. But I think another really cool thing is that I feel a really nice sense of fulfillment, like teaching students and seeing these young kids like come up. It's one of those weird things that when they say like, oh, don't you get so sad when they graduate, and they move on. And I go, yes, I miss them a little bit, but at the same time, it's fulfilling to say like kind of like, hey, I've given you your wings, now go fly.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, like go and make me proud. That's another thing too, is that I want my students to like supersede me. I want them to go to the next level. I can't do this for the rest of my life, so I need somebody to come back and like take my spot, right?
Yeah.
And who better than one of my former students that that learned from me and now has done way better and now is going forward. And so that's my goal, is for my students to supersede anything that I've done, and to maybe they go out and they stretch mariachi to other corners of the globe. Maybe they don't. Maybe they just become an extremely successful person. And like I said, success is in the eye of the beholder. For some people, success is like you're the owner of a company. For some people, success is like I have a nice family and I have a good job, and that's my So just seeing that these people go off and be successful, and it's exciting because then I see the new young ones coming in.
Yeah.
So as much as I can get a little bit sad and say, oh man, these these students that I've seen for 4 or 3 years, or even 2 or 1, they're graduating, they're leaving. I'm very happy because I'm looking at the new incoming crop that's coming, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to work with those kids.
Yeah.
So being able, it's fulfilling to work with students for me. I'm obviously not going to get rich being a teacher, but I'm rich, and it's more of a satisfying enrichedness that I'm getting when I see the what these kids can do, and you know what too, it's one of those other things too that for a long time Pueblo had a bad rap as, oh, this Southside school and you're working with Southside kids, and I would get people tell me, they're like, you work at Pueblo, aren't you scared? And I'm like, no, I'm not scared, not one bit. Like, I grew up in this area, I attended a different school, but I still grew up in the area, and most of my friends came to Pueblo, and I'm by and from this area, so I have nothing to be scared of, So it's fulfilling. It's fulfilling for me to see these kids that a lot of people count out, and they say like, oh, those kids from Pueblo, right? And for people to be like, oh my God, like, wow, look at those kids play, or listen to them, oh my gosh, like, right? So for me, that's like 100% fulfilling, and that enriches me like more than probably money could, to see the kids accomplish things.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I can't even imagine, like, including with yourself, all of these professionals and instructors who have pretty much dedicated their lives to kind of doing this, and to pass on different lessons, different of course the like the music within itself, and even like folklorico programs as well. Like, I know there have been generations of of families passing all that down.
Yeah.
And so far, I mean, from what I see from afar, and like seeing different interviews of like people who were instructors, are instructors, that's like one of the, I think, the biggest things that they imply is that just seeing these kids kind of grow up, and you see them as adults and turn into like these amazing things, but then them going back and seeing like the kids, when they were inside of their programs, just like kind of how do I say it, like, they build up like as a caterpillar, and then they go in their cocoon, and then they're like still developing and just turn into this
I
like
love that.
beautiful butterfly.
I love that. That's exactly
Yeah.
what it is, and it happens for so many kids because we all were those awkward teenagers, right? There's a time when you're awkward, and I think that's another thing that's really important about mariachi education, is that it gives these kids like a lift as well. Like, you get some awkward kids that come in, and you see them the way they dress sometimes during the day, and you're like, oh my God, this kid dresses funky or whatever. It's just whatever the thing is, but you just, that awkward teenage phase, right? And then they all of a sudden put a traje on. And I've had teachers and other staff here be like, I don't recognize those kids. Like, oh my God, I see them walk the halls all day, and they're in whatever they're wearing, Crocs, or they're whatever, mismatching Crocs or whatever. They're like funky, wearing bright colors, and just they look like little kids. And then the moment they put on the traje, they're like, oh my gosh, like,
Yeah.
it's a whole other person, right? I always like to call it the Superman suit. It's like, you're like regular Clark Kent during the day with goofy glasses or whatever, and then all of a sudden you put on the Superman suit, you put the traje on, and it's like boom, like wow, right?
Yes.
So no, I think it's 100% important for them, when it comes to their oh gosh, what do you call that? Their sense of self, like self-awareness, and also just being able to say, like, maybe I'm a dorky kid, but like when I'm with the mariachi, I'm like part of this group, and I'm really doing something, and,
Yeah.
and I look cool doing it. And, yeah.
Yeah, that is amazing. I love that. Love that. Alrighty, and for my last question, I know we kind of talked about this a little bit, but what do you envision for the future of mariachi and folklorico education?
Wow, that's really hard to tell. I mean, but the cool thing about it is, I think there's that saying that says that all things must evolve or they will die. I know some people who are like hard edged. They're like, no, mariachi needs to stay, it needs to stay folkloric. It needs to stay, you go back and hear these recordings in the 40s and 50s. Well, that's the way it should sound. Right. But is that all reality? No, like, because everything moves and everything changes and everything, even the instrumentation has changed. If you look back, if you really want to say, hey, you want authentic mariachi, well, then you go back before the 30s, before the trumpet was introduced, right? And so now all of a sudden it's string players. And then you say, well, do away with the trajes and just give them like the the suits, like the manta. They used to, they were like farm workers.
Yeah.
They were just working men that would, get up, play together, right, and put a little sombrero on, and they weren't wearing these amazing trajes de charro. And if you want to go past, even further back, you have the indigenous roots, and so it's like, where does it stop when you say, like, well, authentic mariachi? Like it keeps morphing and it keeps moving and it keeps going forward. And I think that it's important, because then that way students and young kids can identify. Yes, they can identify to the past, but yeah, they start looking forward, right? Like, it's really neat for me to see these kids come in, and before, like, when I first meet them, they have like their playlists, or you hear them and they're talking about so and so, and Ty Dolla $ign and all these like like all these rappers and all these like whatever, other types of music. And then little by little, they're like, oh yeah, did you see like Mariachi Vargas's new album came out? Or did you see like Sol de Mexico or Angela Aguilar, right? Like, there's like all these new young singers, even Christian Nodal. Christian Nodal is huge, man, right?
Yeah.
And he literally, even though he, kind of has a mix, but I mean, he still has the mariachi, in there. The mariachi's still playing behind him. Yeah, even now, like, there's Alejandro Fernandez, now his son, Alex Fernandez, who's the grandson of Vicente Fernandez, is now, coming out, and he's this young, good-looking kid, and so the girl, it's like, it's cool. It's all that, like, so there's neat that there's still mariachi ranchera type singers and people putting that music out, brand new stuff that the kids are like, I want to learn that. I want to be part of that. Like, so that to me is really cool. And like, for me, it's like, maybe we have a couple of future stars in here that are, that are going to do that same thing down the road, and keep pushing mariachi, pushing the limits of mariachi music, and just keep it alive.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, I definitely hope for that. I was actually remembering about one of your former students, Giselle, and I kind of read like a little biop of like what she's trying to do with her music, because I know I kind of just barely saw it last night that she has like her own proper music, and I was kind of listening to it, and it definitely still has her like mariachi roots embedded into them. And I was reading the biography they kind of put out for her, and it was like that she's trying to bring some of that into her newer like generation of music, and they kind of compared it to Selena, and I was like, that is so right. She's taking a lot of the things that she grew up doing and is like implying them into her own music now, and I was like, that is like the perfect like embodiment of where mariachi music is going. So I totally understand what you're saying, and I so see it in your like former students. So I just think that is like amazing, and I'm glad. Cool. Yeah. I'm so I'm so glad that you kind of give me your insight, because I didn't think about it like that either. Of like the music changing itself, because you were bringing up the fact that mariachi started as just string instruments. I remember learning that when I was in school, and then they introduced a trumpet, and it's like been evolving for years and years, and even like. Adding to that, I remember also learning that women weren't allowed to be in mariachi. Yeah. So like
it's kind of weird. So
yeah.
So there's pictures, old pictures like from the 1800s, and there's what you would consider, again, like back then a mariachi was basically just an amalgamation of people that played certain instruments, right? If you really go back, a lot of times there was like different instruments. There's pictures of a mariachi, quote unquote mariachi, and they have a clarinet player, and they have like a violinist, and they have like a stand-up bass. So a lot of times whatever the people in the pueblo had, whatever instruments they had at their disposal, that's what they used. So it wasn't like, oh, you don't have a guitarrón, well then you can't be a mariachi. No, it was like whatever you have, and there was even drums. And there's pictures with women playing harp, women playing drums. Yeah. Women were singers and part of it back then. But what wound up happening, and that again, that I think that's when in the 40s and 50s, when the whole movie kind of thing took hold, right? Because if you think about it, the charro, the proper charro, there's no real there's no women charros, right? To be a woman, you're an escaramuza. So escaramuzas are the ones that ride, and they ride side saddle with their, and yes, they're done up beautiful, but you're not a charro, right? So then once the mariachis adopted the uniform of the charro, and they said, hey, this is the way you guys are going to look, and it's going to be presentable, and it's a certain way, certain style. Well, they're like, well, we can't have women doing that. Yeah. Right. So women tie way back because they originally were part of it. 100% part of it. They were dancers. They were singers. They were instrumentalists. They were part of the mariachi. It wasn't until, some male chauvinistic type things took hold, and they said, hey, the charros are only men. A woman cannot be a charro, right? She has to be a escaramuza. So once they started wearing the traje de charro, like women they can kind of wear something similar. Like there would be some like Lucha Reyes. There were some of these, early like women ranchera singers, and they still had to wear like the dresses and like the china poblanas or a certain style of dresses. They weren't really allowed to wear charro uniforms, right? Because it wasn't PC, right? It wasn't, the charro is like a proud, like I'm a horseman and I'm a charro, right? And it kind of, in a way, is kind of weird too that, you'll see some old, like, there's old documentation of like even the American cowboy. Yeah. So the American cowboy totally took everything from the charro. So things that people don't understand is like even like the words, like if you, like the modern day cowboy says like, oh, I have my lariat, right? The rope. Lariat is la riata. Like, so they took words that they couldn't say la riata, so they're like lariat, right? Yes. The chaps that people wear, like the cowboys wear chaps. They're chaparreras. So chaparreras, but they couldn't pronounce chaparrera, so they shortened it to chaps. Even like the the word, like if you ever heard like the whole like the word like buckaroo, and they say, hey, buckaroo, right? So buckaroo came from them not being able to pronounce vaquero. So the word vaquero was like buckaroo, like so that they kind of like, threw it around and
Yeah.
changed yeah. So the reason the Mexican cowboy, I mean the reason the American cowboy does and is what he is due to the charro. The Mexican charros are the ones that introduced all that stuff to the American cowboy, learning how to handle cattle, learning how to be a horseman, right? So even that, like going back and looking at old pictures and stuff of the American cowboy, women were not allowed to be a cowboy, right? Women had to wear skirts. Women didn't wear jeans and ride a horse. And, you know what I mean? That was men's job. Women would stay back there and raise the children. It's just the roles, right? So it's kind of the same thing. That's when it took hold of that, then again, of course, then all of a sudden, they found their way to, women find their way back in, and now there's groups of just women, which I think are great, but I think now it's getting to the point. It's almost like when you see the high school mariachis, they're 50-50, half girls, half men.
Very true.
You know what I mean? And it's like that to me is the modern mariachi.
Yeah.
Not just an all guy group, not just an all woman group. Like literally that 50-50 split is becoming more evident when you see like professional groups. And I think that's probably within the next 10 years or something, you're going to see more professional groups that are more a mixed group as opposed to just, an all guy group and an all girl group.
Yeah, I totally get that, because I mean that's how they pretty much bring us up like in school, because you get your kids, and I mean they're gonna be like a mixture, so that's I definitely see that as being like the new norm.
And even playing professionally, whenever like I get hired and they're like, hey, do you guys have any female singers? Like even like in my professional groups that are mainly guys, like I have to bring at least one or two girls along because they want to hear the songs that women sing and in the voice of a woman, right? Like for me to try to sing a girl song is like, okay, it's cute, but it's not gonna do it justice, right? Like they want to hear like a certain song done by like a woman, right? So yeah, so I to me that's what it's morphing to. I think it's the move. I think the days of the just all male groups are kind of numbered now. I think it's you're starting to see it, especially in the U.S. I know Mexico still really tries to hold that tradition, and they still try to say like, oh well, we're this mariachi and we're a guy group, but oh, you want females in a group? Well, guess what? Here's an all-female group that we made. It's like, well, why can't you just integrate some of those females into your group, right? So, but it's gonna happen. I really think that it's gonna like I said, probably within the next 10 years, we're gonna start seeing a lot more of that.
Yeah, professional mix. Yeah.
Yep.
I can definitely see that. Yeah. Alrighty, well, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to do this interview with me. I really appreciate all of your insight, and I got to learn a lot.
Good.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just so happy I got the chance to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm glad your mom stopped me there.
Yes, I know. I was a tad bit nervous. I was like, he looks familiar, and then my mom was like, yeah, that's John Contreras, and I was like, oh. And I didn't want to like stop you in the middle of your dinner, but my mom is a little, she's like, hey, just do it.
There's nothing
and I
wrong
was
with
like,
that, because
okay,
then we would have never connected like this. Like
that is true.
Maybe we would have, but it would have been a little bit, yeah. No, it's good. Like I think that's a good thing to maybe take away from your mom too, is when your mom sees an opportunity, seize it, man, because you never know. And I kind of tell my students that too, like an opportunity comes and you have to either be ready for it and you have to try to seize it, or that may never come again.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
sure.
We're talking about just an interview, but for my kids, it could be something life changing, like a job or like an opportunity for them to go to a college or something, and it's like, man, if that opportunity is presented to you, don't be like, well, let me think about it. Maybe I'll go next year. I have a student of mine that Pobrecito, he kicks himself in the butt all the time because he was offered a scholarship to a school that was in Texas, right? Not a big school, but still a school, and they wanted him to go and play mariachi there, right? Which he played and he loved. But he, in a way, was a little scared. He'll tell you, yeah, I was scared. But also, he felt like, well, I'm here, I'm working, I'm working for my, like, to help his family because he didn't have a father. So it was him and his brother and his sister. And he's like, well, I'm here and I'm kind of working to kind of help my mom survive. Even his mom was working a couple jobs and, just trying to keep the family going. So I get it. I understand it. But, now he looks back and he goes, man, if I would have taken it, I would have gone there. I would have gotten a degree, like I would be able to get a much better job than
Yeah.
what, I have now, So,
Yeah.
yeah, they're those things, So I tell them, man, those opportunities just come sometimes once, man. And if you're not able to, if you're not ready for them, or if you're not, like, able to jump at those opportunities,
Yeah.
they'll pass you by. And
True.
then you're like, man, I could have done this, right?
Yeah.
I could have, should have, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's gonna get loud now because
Oh.
their school's letting out right here for lunch. But
Gotcha. Well, thank you so very much
you're
for
welcome,
talking
yeah,
with me.
you're
I
welcome,
appreciate
yeah,
it.
yeah.